Just want you by my side. We've been tossing, turning, staying up all night long. Just want you by my side. We've been tossing, turning, staying up all night long. Just want you by my side. We've been tossing, turning, staying up all night long. Tell me, baby, what's the problem? 'Cause I could try to figure it out. Oh no, oh no. Tell me, baby, what's the problem? I'm only picking up what you're putting down. You'll be tripping, I don't know what about. So what's the problem right now? Okay. I've been tossing, turning.
Chapter 11:000 We need to tell her. Jiraiya paused, glancing over his shoulder at the blonde girl. She had an look on her face, as though she had to force herself to say those words. He tilted his head in askance. He was fairly certain what she was talking about, but he had been wrong before and that had caused a lot of people a lot of pain, so he didn't like making assumptions like that anymore. Who, Tsunade? He asked. Harry nodded, swallowing hard. We need to tell her about me. The truth. He wetted his lips and rolled a shoulder agitatedly, eyes flickering around to make sure they were still alone. That Naruto was still sleeping and both Shizune and Tsunade were still at the river having a bath. She'll be the next leader of Naruto's village, right? The one where we're going to live. I have absolutely no intention of abandoning Naruto or leaving his side. He snorted, indeed, as if he could physically stomach the idea of being separated from his soul. The idea made him break out in a cold sweat as if there were a Dementor close by. It hadn't been so bad before. When he hadn't known, he'd felt guilt and his mind flickered back to the blonde a fair bit, but now that he knew, she'll need to know well, I'll need papers if I'm going to get a job or buy a house, won't I? And you guys have police too, I assume, so they'll need to know I'm not some kind of illegal immigrant or a spy. The Sennin nodded. She had good points. Then there were the problems he hadn't enlightened her about. True, Ibiki and Inoichi had orders to do nothing more than a citizenship interview, but he knew Ibiki, and Inoichi was one of Hatka Sakumo's students. Hari-chan was the living spit of Minato in a way that Naruto had yet to grow into, so much so that it was disturbing in a creepy back from the dead kind of way. Inoichi would end up mind-walking her just to be certain that it wasn't some kind of infiltration attempt, and Ibiki, Jiraiya really hoped that Inoichi's findings would be enough for him to hold off at least until the hospital finished confirming the blood tests. Having Tsunade in on it would definitely make things easier. He nodded. All right, girlie. We'll give her the rundown before we reach Konoha. Give whom the rundown on what? Jiraiya, the slug princess demanded, snatching at the old pervert's ear before he could react to her sudden appearance. Jiraiya hissed, batting his hand at her. Ow, Lego, he yelped as she squeezed harshly. Ow, 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 oh how ow ow. The truth about me, Harry broke in, before Jiraiya lost his ear. Tsunade's eyes narrowed as her hand flicked open, releasing the now whimpering sage who rapidly scooted away, rubbing his red and swelling ear. The group were still at last night's campsite. The fire pit had been kicked over with dirt and leaves. Carefully the ashes had been scattered so that no trace of a shinobi presence remained. The sleeping bags were rolled and tied and sealed away, and all their discarded food wrappers had been disposed of in much the same manner as Naruto's bloody bandages had been the previous 2 days ago. The blonde in question was curled up, fast asleep, on a patch of grass as he waited for them all to finish with their morning chores. He was never very good with mornings. Leaving just the adults arranged in a loose circle, sitting on their backsides with faces far too serious for 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, get on with it, girl, Tsunade growled, idly cracking her knuckles and mentally plotting as much physical pain and torture her medically inclined mind could come up with if this girl was taking Naruto for a ride, claiming to be a sister who didn't exist. Harry took a deep breath. How familiar are you with senjutsu and summonings? He asked. Let's assume I don't know anything and explain yourself, the older woman growled softly, wondering where this was going but willing to listen. Jiraiya rarely put his business face on around her. Who? Okay. From the bottom up then. Summonings have their own dimension. To summon, You create a contract and offer up a blood sacrifice to summon aid from the clan you contracted with. There's more than one dimension, and certain summons, the noble ones, have contracts with the guardians of them. One in particular is used as a training ground for senju adepts. Toads, owls, cats, and a few others. When contracted out to learn, they are given new bodies. Bodies that age at a natural rate and are just as delicate and prone to illness and injury as those of the natives. Upon the death of that body, they are returned to their original forms and dimension, where they're tested and reintegrated back into their summoning clan. But this is just the summons. There are people in that other dimension as well. Splittings. The exact same people on that side as there are on this side. The exact same destinies, but with different personalities and appearances. I am a splitting. I come from that other dimension. Tsunade stared. 100 different mental disorders were filing through her mind in an effort to diagnose this fanciful young woman of her problem, aside from an overactive imagination. Jiraiya nudged her and shook his head meaningfully. She's not making it up, and she's not mentally abnormal. Fukusaku-sama confirmed it and had one of their adepts vouch for her. Gamajusho was a student under her learning senjutsu. Though, the splitting thing is new, he added with a narrow-eyed glare at the girl to explain herself. Now, before he turned her over his key like an errant child. She shifted a little. Hedwig explained the parts Fukusaku-san got wrong. But essentially, I am Naruto. That's why we've been gravitating towards each other so much and so hard. We recognize each other. How much? I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain my soul is a little damaged after everything. Tsunade. I should have died 17 years ago back home. I was subject to a one-hit kill technique, no blocks, no counters, it touches and you're dead. I am the only recorded survivor in history. I survived because of a prophecy that claimed I was supposed to end the war. I missed my time to die. There's no place for me in the afterlife because of it. A month ago, I died again. Properly. The same technique from the same man. I was supposed to cease existing, completely and utterly. No afterlife, no reincarnation, no hell or heaven, just oblivion. Hedwig called in a few favors that the guardians owed me. Whoa, wait, back it up there. Jiraiya exclaimed, waving his dustbin lid-sized hands. He really was massive, almost as big as Hagrid, almost, just as broad though. He had the same business face as Sirius though. The guardians owed you favors? The guardians of your world, the phoenix, and dragons, he demanded. Harry nodded, yes. When you free more than one from slavery and madness, they tend to think fondly of you. My school headmaster had a pet phoenix. Until Hedwig and Gamajusho explained it to me, I never thought twice about it. But a phoenix will never willingly join a human. Ever since his original hatching over 60 years ago, my school headmaster had been imprinting himself on Fox. Every time he hatched or was reborn, Dumbledore would forcibly press his magic against him until a bond was formed. When I was 12, I beat him to the punch by accident. I broke the cycle and Fox imprinted on me instead, willingly at that. It was enough that when the headmaster died, Fox was free to do as he wished. He returned to being a guardian. As for dragons, when I was 11 our groundskeeper got a hold of a dragon egg, Norberta. I sent her off to a reserve in Romania where she would be free. Same thing happened a few months ago. I stole a rather abused dragon from the goblins, flew it out of their underground passageways and let it fly free in Scotland. Apparently it was enough of a debt in my favor to send me here. They figured that I would pass away without a body of my own as the native soul here, Naruto, would reject me. I would go to the afterlife here, meet the splittings of my family and friends, be happy. But that seal, Chuckles, and my inheritance made for a different story. Kuabai made this body for me when Naruto pushed me out of his mind. His reasoning was that, A, he liked me, and B, he wasn't always going to be around to look after Naruto, he needed someone to do it for him. I don't think he was expecting it to work so well. So what are you asking of me? Tsunade demanded, her mind reeling from this as all the pieces began to fall into place. She had indeed studied a little summoning history when she went in search of the slug contract. It fit with what little she knew of noble, greater and other summoning clans. Those who could use ninjutsu were greater clans, but only those who went to the other world, who learned senjutsu, were known as a noble clan. Harry glanced down at Naruto who shifted, murmuring in his sleep. The Gryffindor smiled slightly, gently placing a hand on the blonde's unruly mane. Growing up, I would have given anything for some distant family member to show up. Someone who would take me away, someone who would care. That someone never came. I ended up dying. Even if I weren't Naruto's splitting, I would want to change that for him. To be that someone. Green eyes looked up and pinned the future Godame Hokage in place. What I want is pretty simple. I want to protect him. Jiraiya's done a pretty piss poor job of dealing Hey, the white-haired man snarled, dark eyes narrowing furiously. Of dealing with caring for a child, Harry continued as if he hadn't spoken. Jiraiya, I know you were looking for information on the Akatsuki. I know you were managing the spy rings so that Naruto would never have to grow up under threat of war. I know. But while you were so busy with the big picture, there was no one to handle the little things. No one to teach him how to read properly, or what table manners were. There was no one to help with homework or teach him how to throw kunao, not even someone to greet him when he came home. It may not seem like much, but it does make a difference. It makes a huge difference. It may be too late for Naruto to know that, but he's got so many glaring problems and no one seems to see them but me. No one seems to care if he's only barely able to stop himself from drowning. The Sunin exchanged looks, unable to articulate their feelings. Dark and heavy, sad, knowing, understanding. Yes, they knew what she meant. Tsunade sighed. All right, she muttered, rubbing the back of her neck. I'll pull some strings, keep people from snooping, cover your ass. But you'll owe me double, that's 2 favors. If they don't put Naruto in danger then sure, within reason I'll give you those favors, Harry agreed and Tsunade's eyebrow raised. And what would you consider within reason? She echoed mockingly. No killing or torture, responded the Gryffindor instantly. Tsunade blinked. Then she remembered the girl's reaction to whatever she saw in Kabuto's mind. Harry smiled sardonically. I just finished with one war, Tsunade. The memories are still a little too fresh for comfort, he admitted. She nodded and wisely didn't ask any further. To a shinobi, killing and torture were something you had to do in a war, regardless of age or rank, so asking if the girl had been forced to do so would have been a stupid question. I'll do what I can when we reach Konoha. Do you have a workable backstory? Tsunade asked. Something close to the truth, Harry admitted with a chuckle. Who better to know to handle a Jinchuriki giving birth than the medic Nin granddaughter of the first Kyuubi container? Everyone important knows that female Uzumakis have been used as the container due to their unique chakra. The story is that because it was so close on the back of the IWA war, Kushina gave birth to me in secret with you and Minato attending. Jiraiya squirreled me away in hiding to avoid a second Kumo incident, with Kushina giving me training in the Uzumaki ways whenever she could, as I was to be the one who became the Jinchuriki after her. But with the incident on October 10th with the rogue Uchiha, their deaths, and the desperate circumstances, Naruto took that role and I was hidden away with the summons as I could still be used as a Jinchuriki or taken by Danzo into route. Same backstory after that. Sent to my original home where I was given a different body, watched my surrogate parents die, get tangled up in a war, die, come back, find my way home. The fact that I can use Kushina's chakra chains and a similar teleportation technique as Minato will only solidify it. Never mind the blood tests. If you two back that story up, then I'm airtight. And Naruto will not only be able to reclaim his heritage but he'll have all the protection that entails. Jiraiya sighed. It's a damn good idea, a lot better than my idea, he admitted. His plan had just been to claim that she had been with him, hidden away, but that would involve a lot more effort than the very close to the truth story the Gryffindor had handed over. Damn, it was practically true save for the part where Minato and Kushina were her parents. The fact that Kyuubi liked her enough to give her his name also added to the evidence. We have our backstory then. Let's get going. I want to reach the village before lunch, Tsunade declared, climbing to her feet. Jiraiya grinned as he followed suit. Before rush hour, yes, need to get a good spot, he agreed, face dist ending in that disgusting grin that usually told everyone that he was thinking perverted thoughts again. Harry pulled a face as he shook Naruto awake. No doubt the pervert sage was talking about peeking on the women's baths. From what Naruto told him, it was the man's favorite pastime. 000 Naruto hadn't been sleeping. He was fairly sure that Nichan knew he had been faking, but she hadn't called him out as she explained the plan and just what she was to him. He didn't understand a lot of it, Couldn't understand a lot of it, but some of it really did stick in him. The fact that she understood him, his loneliness, that she wanted to help him and be that precious someone who took the loneliness away. He clung to her hand as they made their way to the front gates of Konohagakure no Sado, worry gnawing his insides. He didn't think he could stomach it if his friends didn't accept her. He was also a little afraid of what she would do when she saw how the villagers treated him. The idea of her leaving him never even crossed his mind as he tightened his grip on her hand, but the thought of someone trying to separate them by force certainly did, and it filled him with ice. Not going to happen, Whiskers, Harry-Nichan told him softly, giving his hand a firm squeeze as if she could read his thoughts, which he guessed she kind of could. She did have that nifty mind-walking ability that let her steal people's memories and learn their techniques. It was so much cooler than Suzuki's Sherry-non, as well as her eyes didn't turn funny and creepy. They turned gold. Gold like her hair. You have whiskers too, he pointed out in defense against her nickname for him, feeling a warm glow in his stomach as he pointed out their family resemblance. She smiled and hugged his smaller body to her side as Jiraiya and Tsunade approached the gate desk. Would you prefer that I got called Whiskers and you got called Sunshine? She teased, tweaking his nose with her free hand. Naruto laughed and tried to squirm free, but she refused to let go and caught his nose between her fingers. What you gonna do now, Sunshine? I have your nose, it's mine now, you can't have it back, she teased. Was this what having a family was like? Naruto wondered. If so, he liked it. That warm glow in his stomach was getting bigger and made his fingers and toes tingled. He could feel his eyes prickling a little as he flung his arms around her waist and squeezed her tightly, snickering into her stomach. Harry-chan, you need to sign in. Jiraiya called from the desk. He felt a little bad for breaking up the moment, but it still needed to be done. Not to mention the gate guards, Kotetsu and Izumo, were having difficulty making their brains work again. All right, Harry agreed, gently stepping free of Naruto's hug and making his way over. He eyed the two Chunin speculatively, memories from both Kushina and Kabuto niggling at him. He remembered them as little more than academy children from Kushina's memories, pranksters who took unholy glee in messing with exploding tags and loudly lamenting the end of the IWA war before they could graduate and show their stuff. She had a distinct memory of hanging them from the roof of the academy by their toes for it. Kabuto's memory was nothing more than an impersonal information card bearing their faces and details. Chuyunin from minor clans, well known for their teamwork, hence why they were always partnered, oftentimes worked on attachment to the torture and interrogation division, had a fondness for using fuinjutsu to seal impressively large weapons and other such things for combat use. He shook his head and signed his name, his signature standing out starkly on the book as the only one written in English. Harry Namikazu Uzumaki glared out from the pages, curved, jointed-up letters in an alien language that looked so flowing and looping next to the chicken-scratched tallies of the other names. Are you sure she's not in Warik no Jetsu? Izumo asked, peering desperately at the former wizard who frowned and folded his arms. Quite certain, thank you, Harry bit out, making the Chuyunin lean back a little in his seat warily. It's just Izumo spluttered only to be cut off. Yes, I'm quite aware of my little brother's joke henge. It's quite funny, he admitted with a smirk. After all, we've never met. The fact that he can accurately guess everything from the color of my hair to the size of my breasts is rather impressive. Shame he got the eyes wrong. By this point, both Chuyunin had bloody noses as they remembered the many times Naruto had got them with that jutsu and realized that they had pretty much seen this girl naked because of it. Stop drooling over my Nichan, roared the blonde genin as he jumped onto the desk in front of them, baring his teeth furiously. Harry caught him by the back of his jacket and pulled him back. It's okay, I was just teasing them about your little henge pranks, the blonde assured her younger brother, hugging him to her chest tightly, which really wasn't helping the two Chuyunin at all in the slightest. Naruto colored. I'm sorry, he squeaked, realizing that because he'd used the Warak in so many pranks pretty much the majority of Konoha had seen his sister naked. Can we get a move on? Hilarious as it is to see Harry causing trained Chuyunin to bleed out, we have more important things to do, Tsunade pointed out coolly as she gave the gate guards a dirty look which hastily had them wiping their noses and sorting out the relevant papers and passes. Here, we hope you enjoy your stay in Konoha. Kotetsu managed to squeak out as the blonde girl swiped the papers from his fingers with a sharp smile, Naruto clinging to her free hand looking devastated, embarrassed, and guilty all at once. He wasn't surprised to suddenly find yourself with a sister and then realize you'd created a joke henge that looked exactly like her which you'd been running around the village completely starkers in. Naruto was very lucky that his sister had a sense of humor. If Kotetsu had done that, his sister would have strung him up from the Hokage tower by his testicles with razor wire. Naked. First stop, the tower to get Tsunade introduced to the elders, then the hospital for blood tests, and while Tsunade's seeing to Kakashi, Sasuke and Guy's student Lee will be taking Harry-chan to torture and interrogation for her citizenship interview with Inoichi and Ibiki, Jiraiya listed cheerfully as he took the lead through the village. To Harry, the place was very strange and unique. Most of the buildings were made out of wood instead of brick. It looked like everyone was in the middle of major repairs. People with baskets were moving through houses and collecting metal weapons like shuriken and kunai that homeowners had tossed down to the ground, having been forced to prise them from the wooden beams of their homes and fill the holes. No one seemed to have heard of buttons or Velcro or poppers either from the look of their dress, so many of them wore fishnets as well. Ninja could be seen flitting here and there. Complaining groups of teenagers with headbands forced into helping with the reconstruction. Carrying loads that normal adults couldn't, walking up walls and hanging from beams to do repairs otherwise not easily done. It was a bright and warm place. The people were in surprisingly good spirits, which Harry hadn't been expecting for a place that had just survived a major attack that killed their leader and God only knew how many other people. A few people stopped and gave him looks of confusion, disgust, wariness. Naruto must have pranked quite a lot of people with that jutsu if he was getting this kind of reaction. He arched an eyebrow and looked down at his brother, who was beet red and trying to avoid looking at him. Harry laughed and ruffled his hair. Really, this body wasn't his. Why would he be upset? Well, he supposed it was his now, but before? Yeah, no. Besides, it was something the Marauders would have done. Harry couldn't blame him for inheriting the pranking gene that he never did. There was definitely a very Asian feel to the whole place. Harry decided as he sniffed the air, identifying a Chinese restaurant close by and something that smelt like a barbecue steakhouse as well. He could live with this. 000 Ibiki was horrifically scarred, serious, and looked like he enjoyed the more subtle forms of torture, the mental kind. He reminded Harry a lot of Alastair Moody, if only because of the scars. He doubted this man would ever retire though. He would probably die in that chair doing the same job as he'd been doing for years and years. Yamanaka Inoichi wasn't anything like Harry had been expecting, but the man was a mind-walker, so his pretty boy looks could be forgiven, he guessed. There was also the small fact that every single male shinobi he had seen possessed more muscle mass than any person Harry had ever met. Even though Inoichi was a pretty boy, he was cored with thick, powerful muscle. It was a little intimidating. These people had honed their bodies to such a state through exercise and experience, not through steroid abuse like people had back home. Now, Inoichi began, "Why don't you tell us why you want citizenship?" Harry arched an eyebrow. He would have, that was obvious. Naruto. No one's been taking care of him properly, he explained curtly. Uzumaki Naruto, correct? What is your relationship with Naruto? The blonde continued, making Harry sigh and scowl. I'm his elder sister, he stated, desperately wanting to ask if he was being deliberately obtuse. There's no record of there being another Uzumaki in Konoha, Inoichi pointed out coolly, making Harry snort. So I suppose Maiko Abasama never married your Shadame. Just like Kasan never married your Yondame, she retorted sarcastically, making the two men tense up, their pleasant faces dissolving into all business. Good, Harry mentally declared. The sooner this was over with, the sooner he could go and find Naruto again. Let the interrogation begin. That's the end of this chapter. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. And to help this channel grow. See you next